Hey YouTube, it's Hither Mann here, and I'm very excited to talk about money and religion. Is there a connection that will make you better with the money scenario or worse? Because many people feel that religion and money conflict and have a major issue putting them together. So I'm going to discuss that on this video with a very special guest. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so as you can see, I am in a car, I'm on the move, but I had to make sure I had my appointment with an incredible guy in Australia while I'm in Italy. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. So this is why I'm in a car, okay? So please don't, think what the hell is she doing, but it's going to be fun. We're going to be talking to Joel, and I'm just going to very quickly talk about my understanding about money and religion and spirituality. I very much believe that money is a spiritual game. So I actually feel that money is just, well, first of all, it's a fact. Money is man-made. It is completely created by man in order to create or add value to other people and judge your level of wealth, etc. The stuff you know already. Now the problem is that religion has tainted that relationship a lot for people, not because of the religion as such, but more so the interpretation of it. So in a nutshell, I actually feel that many religious mentees that I've had at Fortune Academy have actually suffered with they've self-sabotaged with money, and because they were religion conscious or religion focused. So that's been a problem, and I've had to deal with that. And a cultural issue as well has been very big. So this is why I wanted to bring Joel in, because I actually only met him a few weeks ago online, and I've known him through Instagram for a little while, but we only connected a little while ago, and I was so keen to make sure that, because he's a Christian, I said, you need to talk about this topic, because I get many devout Christians, I get many devout students following Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, you name it, and Sikhism, every religion, and yeah, they have struggled. So I wanted to get Joel in to see his point of view and see how maybe there is a different angle that he can come in. So stay tuned. I'm just going to bring him on. Okay, so I'm very excited to bring on, as I said, Joel. Joel is a fantastic guy that I feel can answer some of my questions I have for him. And usually it's just me voicing my opinion. And I thought Joel is perfect. Knowing that he's a devout Christian, I wanted to get his opinion. So hi, Joel. How are you?
Hither, thanks for having me on. It was awesome having you on my podcast. So I'm excited to rock it out with you today.
100%. I am very excited because I love your whole vibe. First of all, everyone, just so you know what Joel is up to, he does incredible things. He's Australian. You were born there, I think?
Yeah, okay. Born in Western Australia. Yeah.
Lovely. But he lives in Bali, which is a beautiful place, and you seem like a very spiritually connected guy. Well, we've already discovered that from the last video. I have put my last video with you on my YouTube. So being Christian, how long have you been a devout Christian? From the youngest age, or did you suddenly become as an adult more devout? How would you define it?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and it's been a journey. I'm sure a lot of other believers that are watching this right now, they know that the path is never really straight, right? I grew up in the Christian space. I never had church hurt. So, some people I do know had a very rough experience of church. They might have felt some power, fear-mongering. Maybe they found it boring, whatever it may be. For me, it was never really that. I connected with the community there. Everything was awesome. I got to the age of 13 years old and just started to go more, I'd say more into my exploration years of like, I know what's better, I know what's best, like, let me do this, let me work this out myself. And my parents were great, they said, cool, like, do your thing and we'll be here.
I was going to ask, were your parents really strict, or they would seem like they were not strict, would you say?
They have a conviction in their belief in Christ. I can tell, it's really a center point, especially for my mom. And I have a very great relationship with my mom. And often when I'd say like stray, like walked let's say call it like a darker path where I had got into drugs and would go out and party. I used to DJ. So I got into that space. I was in the music industry, hanging out with hip hop artists. you know, we were smoking weed in the studios, and I was going into this really like wild life, you know. And the whole time I never had judgment from my family. It was very much so like, hey, you know, like God's looking over you, and you know, call on him, remember to pray, and all these things. So you know, I've had a really great experience. I know that's not always the case for most people, but in the Bible it says children of God, right?
Yes.
It doesn't say grandchildren of God. If it said grandchildren of God, it means you by default adopt your belief because your mom or your dad does, right? So at like 25 years old, I got to a point where I was achieving so much success in my life. I actually was married at the time.
I had no idea. Okay.
I was married, yeah, had a big wedding in Positano, Italy, and you know, moved out to Bali, and then within you're like, okay, within a month, I caught my ex-wife, now ex-wife, having an affair, you know, and so my whole world was rocked. Yeah, and so what it was at the time was I had tried this whole.
I have to ask, sorry. I just want to ask, was she a Christian as well, like you, or not?
No,
just out of interest.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. No. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I had tied my identity very much so to Mr. Success, you know, the successful lifestyle, the successful business, a successful group of friends, successful relationship. And then when I was faced with this, like, wow, this moment, this turning point in my life, I felt like my identity had been shattered. And that was a day where I sat down with everything and reconnected with my vision, with my 10-year vision for my future. And I reconnected with what does it mean to actually pursue these goals in my life? Like, is there meaning behind this? Who am I? Why am I here? And I went on this journey where I felt like there was something in that space. And whether it felt like nostalgic or it felt like a greater or higher power, I started to feel myself gravitating towards it. And it was almost like, you know, I look at it now, you know, with my ex, we can talk, we're fine. You know, there's no animosity, there's no vengeance or anything. Like we went through forgiveness processes and we're on talking terms, you know, we're fine. And so I learned a lot about forgiveness. And it is interesting as a Christian, you know, Christ often would say, you know, it's about loving your neighbor, you know, and to see someone like him who was getting whipped, his ribs were showing, his beard was ripped out, he was, you know, bleeding throughout his whole body, carrying his cross. And he says to God in that moment, forgive them, Father, for they do not know.
Yeah, they know not what they do. I remember that from watching it in the movie Jesus of Nazareth, I think it was, and he even said it in there, obviously straight off the Bible. And it's such a powerful phrase, just to be so forgiving. Wow, so that hit you too. And oh my God, okay, so wow, how did you? Is that how you dealt with? Okay.
Well, there were many different things in my life. I think for what it was more than anything was I started to develop a bit more self-awareness. Like, okay, this here long term is starting to feel like it's taking me down a path where it's not going to be conducive for growth. You know, here's my vision. Here's what I've like when I'm in those moments of, I believe that when we are powerfully creating, we're co-creating with God.
Yeah.
When we're coming from force, not power, when we're trying to force it and we're creating because we're insecure, we're in shame, fear, guilt, we're doing it to try and look cool and all these things, and it doesn't have that deeper meaning, we're not necessarily co-creating with God, we're creating from our wounds.
I love that. Co-creating, that is like, that's amazing. That's a phrase of the day for me. Co-creating with God when you're at the most congruent, most powerful, you feel like no limits. I love that. That is so powerful for people to understand that when they get to that phase. So that's a really good tip, guys. If you're watching and you are struggling with that relationship with your religion and money, then that is perfect. That would apply to all religions. Would you agree?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? I'm not religious as much as I'm a Christian. And this is really interesting too, Hither.
That is very interesting, yeah.
I studied theology, right? So I studied religions. And if you actually trace it back and look at the history of where this all really just originated from, the disciples and Christ would often refer to the walk of Christ and the principles of Christ as the way. They would refer to it as the way. The Romans called those that followed the way in Christ, they called them Christians. So we today, when we call each other Christians, it's actually Roman. It came from the Romans.
Wow.
And so that was just kind of a thing that happened within the culture as it spread. And then obviously you have like different institutions and systems that started to take it on board and implement it into their cultures. And obviously they started to add things in. And if we would really take it back to the basis, the foundations of where it all comes from, and really just like how Christ taught it, was that it's not about religion, it's about relationship. You know, so for me, I'm not like, I could go to church and that's fine. And I love having people around me that are like-minded, ambitious, that have, that are great incented. But it's, for me, I don't never look at God now in this way of religion, because it's actually a pagan way of viewing God. It's believing that God is to be feared, that, like even this conversation around money, I know this is a big topic with your listeners, is like, money is the root of all evil, or like,
yes.
I can't make so much money as a Christian because then I may be greedy. God is not to be feared in a sense of like, he's an angry guy upstairs that's going to send a thunderbolt down every time you do something wrong. That's actually a Roman pagan view of God, because they believed in the mythological gods that they took from, beliefs before that and brought it into the church. So I really love this idea that a lot of religions believe that it's, in order to win love from your creator, you must climb the mountain to get to the top to meet your creator there. Jesus taught us something very different. Jesus came down from the mountain to meet us where we're at.
Wow, I love
and he
that.
taught us about relationship, and he taught us about how to move into the higher brackets in life, where it's forgiveness, where it's joy, where it's acceptance, where it's creation. It's creation. When if you're not in creation, you're in either stagnation or destruction.
I love it. So that's very powerful, coming from someone who I thought you were super religious, which is amazing either way. I'm spiritual, not religious. So you seem the same, which is even more incredible, because you studied theology, so you just understand religion full stop. And I love how you understand the source of everything. That really has even resonated with me, with the whole, I didn't understand the whole pagan view of how the religion was taken. So that's really helpful, just I'm sure to everyone. What advice would you give then to people who are, so I have so many students, traders, and I see self-sabotage. So they have a cultural built-in problem whereby they do feel that greed. So what's the advice you'd give them? Yeah,
this is great. I love this. And I find that it's a case-to-case kind of basis thing. It's customizing the conversation. But generally speaking, what you think about and the way that you view God and your relationship with him is very much so going to determine how you show up in life. Because every decision that we make is coming from and driven by our values and our beliefs. So if I value, let's say, going out and partying and taking drugs and all that, right? And someone comes to me and says, hey, Joel, do you want to go party? Straight away, I'm going to say yes. In that moment, the word values comes from the word evaluate. So I'm evaluating in microseconds. Is that something that I want to commit my time to, which is very valuable, more valuable than money, by the way. And if I say, oh yeah, that's what I want to do, in that moment, I've then gone into my line with my values. Now I'm not here. That's not my value. It's not my top value. It's probably on the ladder of millions of values. It's like down near the bottom, right? I'm not really in that space anymore. But I don't judge it, because I understand that if somebody has a value around saving money and investing it, and that's the way of life, and then somebody else goes and spends it, I don't judge it, but I look at it and I ask them, is this going to be conducive for your growth? And does this actually take you down a path that will still keep you in your, what's deep and meaningful is your spiritual connection, and also where you're going with your vision that you're co-creating with God? And if the answer is no, and people know when I ask this question, they're like, no, it's kind of out of alignment, or it's not really going to take, or I'm going to do it for like one more year and then I'm out. Then they know, right? And so it's very much about intention. It's intentional where we're going and where we're coming from. And it's not what.
Sorry,
it's not what you are. It's not what you are that holds you back. It's actually what you think you are not that holds you back. Like if I think that I'm not this, and I'm not good enough, and I'm not, that's the thing that's going to determine whether or not you're actually going to step into a space where you're actually a person that's in integrity and also in alignment with your values and beliefs. So that's like the first stage.
Absolutely. And I mean, what do you say to people? I mean, okay, there's the Mother Teresas of the world who just had like nothing, but they needed money to get them to travel around the world, and they were famous because they had funding behind them. The Vatican, you know, the things like the Vatican, who have got hedge funds running their money, because I know them personally. Some of the hedge funds, not all of them, that run the Vatican's money, they put a lot of money in there. They're a massive financial institution. So this is where the problem comes in, because so many religions use money in or power and the ego behind. It's more, they use the power of religion connected to the money, and then they have this authority, and it's a probably more pagan view, again, based on what you said. What would you say to people that are stuck in that? Because I have some people I knew, I have had in my students in the past, what's the word, the gentleman that preaches in the church, they're called, not the pastors, not the priest, but the oh my God, pastor, sorry, my God. Okay, I'm so sorry. So a very, very charismatic guy. Pastors are always, you know, like they're always like, they can hold their conversation very well. He invited me to a church and I loved it. I loved the whole, you know, the message, and I saw him in action. And then immediately the end of the conversation, he took me, you know, we had a private meeting with him and his friends and family. And his only concern was, can you invest in our church? Like, we want money to do this. And I was thinking, well, you know what? It all comes down to money for them. So I felt like for them, it was just an investment opportunity speaking. So what happens when people are stuck in that? Because there are quite a few people very actively working in churches, but they just think money, 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 money. So this is the link. So and they get a bit of a problem with it.
Absolutely, for sure. So there's a few, let's pull this one apart, because there's a few things here. All right, I'll circle back to the Vatican and a lot of money around that.
Yeah,
let's go there first. Just remember that Rome came into power really strongly when they combined church and state, right? And what that means is that's when the religion, it also pairs with the government. So they had power, and they utilized their church power, and the church was funded through the government in a very handsomely funded way, which allowed them to be able to build very big churches. Now, when you call yourself a Christian, there's this automatic, like, these are the standards that I live by, right? Same as any other religious belief you have. When you say this, it's like, okay, cool. Most people would then expect you to stay in alignment with that. The problem comes down to where we were talking about before, the intention. Like, I could call myself a Christian, but if my intentions are still not pure, ultimately in the long term, is it really taking me to the higher road that is of what we're called here to do? And this is why it becomes so intricate, because if we can really strip it back and have a look at someone like Jesus, right? Because you have Roman Catholics, you have Protestant Christians, so you have like Baptist, Lutheran, you have Seventh-day Adventist, you have a number of different sects, right? And the Protestants broke away from the Roman Catholic institution. They protested church and state. They didn't agree with the way that system, and I'm not saying Roman Catholic people, because I've got lots of friends that are Roman Catholics, and you know, you can tell they just got like their heart for God and they're fully in it, right? Yeah. It's more about the institution and the way that they structure that isn't always necessarily agreed upon. And you have it with Muslims, and you have it with Taoists, and you have it with Buddhists. It's you know, beliefs that are tied also to our identity. Same thing with politics. That's why you've got the left and the right, and people getting triggered. Like, they're in freaking Trigger Town right now in America. Like, everyone's going at each other because you tie it to your identity. So when we look at someone like Jesus and what he says, and I want you to really listen closely on this. In the New Testament, he says, my purpose is to bring the good news of the kingdom of God. That's what he says, that line. And everyone says he's here for this and he's here for that. And yeah, he's there for multiple reasons. But the real big main reason, and if we pay attention to that and go, okay, interesting, my purpose is, to bring the good news of the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is the promise of God. God has promised us utopia, a new earth. He's promised us heaven that can come down to earth. He promises us this. It's then on us with our free will that we're being gifted to choose that. He's not going to force that upon us. So no matter how many rituals we do or how many times we do this or that, that's not going to win the love of God. It's not about winning love of God, because then it becomes a conditional love from God, not an unconditional love. Right. When you look at Christianity, it's the only religious belief where you are saved by grace, which means because Jesus chooses in that relationship with you and you're co-creating with him, chooses to be in that next level, to be in that eternity, that space of eternity, that's what sets it apart. And so if my decisions are taking me further away from my relationship with Christ, that's where the problem comes in.
Oh, nice. Okay. Wow. I mean, I love how you can just keep a very strong individual aspect to it. So you don't get swayed by the church. I think it's more like the foundations behind these big institutions. I guess it's the institution that is the church, or the financial institution in a mosque, or in Sikhism, in temples, whatever, you know. So that I find that's the corrupted area in religion, when these men or women are in power and they're trying to dictate the laws of this, and then their opinion about money becomes like the religious opinion, which is incorrect. And I love that you've just studied theology. I wish everyone did that. I think that's going to be the best advice for most people to look
at it like this.
Yeah.
Let's look at it like this, Hither, because that's such a great point. I want to bring it to this space here, because I think that this will actually really be able to create a better definition.
Okay.
A lot of churches in every religious space are wanting the money, and I get it. Like you get the money in, you're able to build more, you're able to reach more, you're able to market more.
Yeah.
Look at someone like Christ. He literally lived from home to home, and people offered for him to come and stay with them. And he had his own quiet place. He didn't have much at all. Like, he carried next to nothing, right? You've got this 33-and-a-half-year-old man who, with the space of only like 3 years, was on his real, true, deep sense of mission. And he recruited some of the most unlikely people to be with him on that mission. Fisherman, tax collector, a physician, right? And they went with him, and he did some of the most epic stuff that ever, like, even to today, it was like echoed throughout eternity. Even to this day, over 2 billion people still worship him 2,000 years later.
Yeah.
He didn't have much. He didn't need much, but he was so in his mission and in his purpose that it just rippled out this inspiration that people to this day still worship. So then I challenged, like, how much money do we really need in order to do this? Like, is it better for me to try to almost like sell my soul, trying to convince someone like you, Hither, to invest in the church, or actually just be an incredible human being that you're like, man, I don't know what it is, but I just really want to be around these people. And I really feel like I want to step in and invest in this. I'd say that this person just had the wrong approach. They don't see Jesus in that way. And that's why they made this decision. That's what I'm saying. It's really important to understand the character of Christ.
Yeah.
Because if we use that as the principles, wow, the whole game changes.
Yeah, I love
it. A whole new level of success.
That makes so much sense. So keeping the example of Christ separate to the financial institutions that make the buildings, you know, that they have to have these fancy, amazing big churches. I think it just celebrates the religion. I think it's great. And they similarly need the big temples and mosques and whatever else. So, okay. So guys, if you're watching this, you need to understand the difference between the financial institution behind the religion that isn't representing the religious values and principles, just like how Joel said it perfectly. Remember where these originated from. And in Christianity, it's coming from Jesus Christ, and he is the very, like, a pure soul. He didn't have any of this stuff that maybe your pastor or whoever's telling you, because that's what it comes down to. I hear all of these stories, oh, my pastor said this, and they kind of believe the pastor more than the religion, and I hate that. So I don't want people to get so sucked up in some, you know, pastor or whoever religious head. That's the problem in this whole, you know, we've seen it many times with mosques, and they have like this radical whoever they call at the top. But some of them are really nice. Some of them are the crazy ones, and the one, you know, it happens in all religions, and they're the ones who create the mad thinking.
Hey, I get a lot of hate from Christians. You know what I mean? Like, I probably get more hate from Christians than any other religious space, because we have a difference in our understanding and intention of what we follow. And you know, I'm not perfect by any means. I'm not here saying like follow my way. It's not about that in any way. I would say take it back to Christ, like the principles of Christ.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people look at people like a Tony Robbins, or they look at, you know, Oprah Winfrey or Lisa Nichols, or they look at Gary Vee.
Yeah.
They don't have anything on Jesus.
I know.
You know, like, why would I study that? Like, I think they're great human beings. I know most of them, but I choose to study Jesus because of the exact reason that I said before, the fact that this guy had such an echoing impact. And, you know, even in that relationship with him, you're saved by grace. It's not that he's forcing you to be in that relationship with him. He's offering to co-create and be in that eternity, which is like what nobody else can promise in any other space. And you even look at this, I think that some people get confused because they kind of wait and they're like, all right, well, I'll wait for God to, you know, show me the sign and show me this and that. In Proverbs 16:9, it says, the heart of man makes the plans, but the Lord will direct the steps of your plan. So what that means is we've got to get a start. You know, you like sit down, start etching it out. But what I do is I pray to God when I'm writing out my vision. I'm like, God, utilize my skill sets, inspire me, impress upon me ways that I can really step into this. Show me how I can be more. Show me where my potential is day by day in me stepping more into my vision, you know. And I tell you what, he's always provided. I've never gone without.
I love it.
You're such
an inspiration. Yeah, you're such an inspiration. I mean, I love all your message. You're such a kind, good-hearted person, and you're very right. We've all got to no one's perfect, but you're definitely doing a very good job at just like being super clear about who is the person to follow. So that's beautiful, you know, it's very inspiring. And I think you've helped so many people. But just rounding up what you've said, so you started off saying amazing. That statement of the day was when you're co-creating with God is when you're the most powerful. So that's when, let's put it in the simple tense for people who are thinking about this money concept. So when you're making lots of money, remember, money is man-made, so there's nothing wrong with it. It is just you are using it to do things. It's what you do with the money that matters, right? So it's, you know, being the abundant, charitable, whatever, however you end up is your mission. But that co-creation with God was beautiful. I love that statement you said. So rounding it off, do you think Jesus has a problem with money?
I don't think Jesus has a problem with money. I think he's concerned with us consuming all of our presence with something that is so fleeting, that's material. You know, like, I know this, that money comes and goes. The time I'll never get back again. That second that just passed, then it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, you and I chose to be in this conversation in this time, right? We make decisions every day. And my question is, like, I can do even this, I can do all the mindset hacks, all the tools I can tap into, and all the things that I've learned, and they're great and they're really powerful and they get me into awesome empowerment. And I've had a ton of money come in some seasons, and I've had like just scraping by in others, you know, like I've had my human moments. But what I do know is that no matter how much I get of that, and no matter how much of the mindset tools and everything else, I can't save my own soul. I can't pull my soul up by its shoestrings.
Yeah.
I can't promise myself eternal life.
Yeah. Okay.
No one else has ever promised that or offered that. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, there's something there. And to be so bold in the statement and the courage of even stating the claim like no one else has, it's like, wow, that's conviction.
Yeah. Okay. I love that so much. You're such a, like I said, everyone who was, I had so many people actually telling me on Instagram they wanted me to do this video because I said it on my story just casually. I said, I'm going to talk about how religion and money is related, and they were like, yes, please. And there was a female that I know, she's a YouTuber, and she was like, yes, I can't wait for this video. So how do people connect with you? Because they're going to want to. Anyone who is, I have many devout Christians or any religious incredible people that I know have struggled with this topic, so they're going to want to ask you more questions. How can they find you, Joel?
For sure. Yeah. Find me on Instagram. Go to @IamJoelBrown, or you can go to iamjoelbrown.com on my website and just contact me through the contact form.
I'll put it on my YouTube description, guys. So it's going to be in the YouTube description. Look below. I think Joel is a really, really, I mean, you know me, I don't make recommendations to people I don't feel can help and deliver what they say. And I feel Joel will help you. So if they want further conversations with you, do you actually coach people on any of this topic, or, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
It started off just answering questions, because we live in a world where there's more questions than there are answers, right?
Yes.
And the more that I got into that, I started realizing how much it was shifting people so much into a better perspective and understanding of God and how they connect, and knowing, like, seriously, Hither, there's so much potential in it that, you know, like I teach a lot of things, but this here is what I absolutely get fired up the most about, because I just know how much it's not only changed my life, but so many people.
It's congruent to you. I think it's going to be your most powerful, most passionate topic. I mean, or like, you're good at so many things, but this has to be an area you coach people on, because we need, and you're such a young, vibrant, you know, lively human being. And normally they're hearing this kind of stuff from some white bearded guy, you know, so we need more.
Well, I mean, to be honest, it required my maturity, you know, like it took me time to mature into the space, and as I continue through. But if we leave your incredible tribe with anything, I just want to bring it back to this reminder that you have so much within you and around you to make anything possible. You know, like when God brought you into the world from non-existence into existence, he gave you dominion, right? Like when Jesus talked about the kingdom, the opportunities for you to be in the kingdom at any point in time. You know, that you know, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That prayer is to bring the kingdom to earth. That's what Christ came to say. It's available to you now. And you know, you're the son or the daughter of a king who claimed his throne through dying on the cross and resurrecting. It's like to promise us he could give us eternal life. He rose from the grave to show us he can do it, you know, and we can do it too through him. So just remember how much power and potential you have. You know, like you're not a waste of time. You're not a waste of money. You're not a waste of energy. You're none of that. What you are is, you are not just random DNA dancing to itself. Like you didn't pop out of nothing for no reason. You're here for a real reason, and start like really inquiring. Prayer has been one of the biggest moves that I could make in my life, that I'm continually co-creating with God in that prayer, and just, hey God, you know, checking in. When I visualize, I'm imagining God powering me up and sending me into that space to be in my congruency. It's not about you being perfect. You know, like the pagan view is very much, you've got to be perfect, otherwise you're punished. It's not about that. You have a direct connection with him, and you co-create like no story when you're in that window.
Yeah, it's like having a best friend, just the most supportive one ever. I love that. It is so powerful what you just said there. And I mean, like I always tell my students when I coach them about money, I tell them to be detached from money. So I hate it when I hear someone think they're a failure because they haven't got money, or they're a success because they've got money. I think if you like yourself or love yourself with and without money, that's when you can start making money, because money should be a separate entity to you. You are a whole spiritual that is completely irrelevant to money. Money is just like, it's the easiest thing in the world, because it's like human purpose is so much higher than just money. So I love that how you're talking about it is really highlights, you know, it's like people are so obsessed with making money because they think that's the only goal in life, and it's not. It's so much more to it. Money should be the easiest thing, I think, you know, is when they figured out themselves.
I think you're a great testament to this too. And I want to speak into this because you've been smart about making money. There's a difference between working really hard to make money and being smart about it. You put in a lot of hard work, and I'm sure you have your moments where you really go in, but you've created systems. You've learned from some of the best in the world. You made the commitments. You had the courage when others were still, you know, partying or staying at home on their couch. So when you look at the word poverty, even back in Jesus' days, the word poverty actually meant low production. It didn't mean you were down in the dust and you were done and you're screwed for life. It actually just meant low producing. So the key to wealth and prosperity is higher production. If I can be smart about getting the right systems, learning where to invest, right? Like who to network with, but also like, hey, here's the vision, like getting good at enrolling people in your vision in an authentic way. And then they want to come and support you to build it out. There's nothing wrong with that. That's kingdom building.
Yeah.
And you're doing it in a way where being smart about how much volume you now get to produce and you get to scale it.
Yeah.
And we're being given gifts to do that too. It's just like your intention behind it all, and not losing yourself in the process.
100%. It's a spiritual journey that's the most important. The rest follows, and it comes so much easier when you're on the right path, and you certainly have found that path, and that's very inspiring. So, you know, thank you so much, Joel, for just being you, and we love it. We don't need to follow some white bearded man. We can follow Joel and figure No, honestly, because young people need that. Like, you're super young, you're super vibrant, you're like a testament to the up and coming generations that really need guidance, you know. So thank you so much for just doing what you do. And people, please follow Joel, you know, work with him and work with the whole understanding of your philosophy and the spirituality. And then money is going to be something you find really easy to work with or create, and co-creating with God, making you, that's the most powerful statement. I love that. That's statement of the day, statement of the month. Thank you so much. You're an absolute star, Joel. So I'm going to put your link below. People connect with him, and thank you so much.
And thank you for making this kind of conversation hopefully more popular, you know, because I think it's really needed in this time. So thanks for introducing me to your tribe, and I really appreciate you and you calling me from Italy. You didn't have to do this, but I love that you're so committed to getting great content out there.
Yeah, this was not planned, as in this trip was very last minute, and then I had to tie it in with a meeting as well. And I thought, I'm not canceling Joel because I've made him like rearrange once, and I just wanted to make sure this was not going to get canceled. And I love this topic. I personally was very much looking forward to it. So you've helped me, and I know you've helped so many people. So thank you so much.